We're live.
All right, cool. So we are live in our pre-show. Couple minutes till we start, I guess, our first official episode here. Two awesome guests they're with us, right? Can you hear us? Can you see us? Can you see yourselves? Kim and Dawn, you there?
Yes. Yep, we're here.
All right, awesome. Good stuff. Dawn, first off, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, we're doing pretty good. We're really excited to talk to you guys. This has been, I feel like, a while. This is an idea that we had for, some time in order to, educate some of the families, not just in our program, but all over the country with girls who are trying to get recruited, parents who have kids usually it's their oldest. They need a little bit more help because they haven't gone through it yet. They're a little bit nervous about what's ahead. So we're excited to have you on here, Dawn.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I got out of work early to do this, so it's great.
See, as a college coach, I don't know if that's a good thing because I feel like your work's pretty awesome. So
well, not my commute, but
It's true. You have to go over bridges, right?
yeah, it's about an hour and a half each way.
And that's just because you got to go over those bridges. If it was a crow's fly, it's probably what 20 some odd miles.
It's about 50 miles.
Oh, because
Oh, wow.
when you go right, because you can't go by
Yeah,
the boat. You got to
yeah.
get her a boat. I think we should have Mercy get her a boat.
I agree.
One of those high-speed
Oh, just
yachts
a
or
house.
something.
A house in Westchester.
That's
be
where I
nice,
grew.
too.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm a Westchester boy. I grew up there.
Where did you grow up?
I'm Fox Lane High School.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Foxes.
Fox Lane.
Yeah, you see this? That's the fox.
He's so old that he claims he invented that.
No. I did. Not me, myself. Me and all my buddies that played football together. We did. We invented
You're
that.
proving my point.
I'm not that old, though. I'm only 57. That's not that old.
You're old. You're getting there.
Cliff's older than me.
That's pretty funny.
Yes. Have you recruited any Fox Lane Foxes?
No, we really just recruit down on the island, to be honest. We don't really recruit up in the Westchester area too often.
Yeah, they got some girls who can play. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the island girls can play too, but they got
Yeah.
Westchester girls
Well,
who
they
can
don't want
play.
to stay home. The Westchester
That's-
kids want to go somewhere else.
That's true.
So that's why we recruit Long Island, because that's going away for Long Island kids.
It's true.
Yeah. To show you how old I am, when your school was an all-women's school when I was a kid.
That's
Yes.
proof number
I've
two
heard
that
such
you're old
things.
tonight.
Just it's a beautiful school though. It's right on the Hudson.
But if you live in like West Hampton, right? You play for like West Hampton's girl team. Like you are kind of going away if you're going
Oh
to
yeah,
Mercy, right?
it's 2 hours,
It's pretty far.
especially with traffic.
It's like
Yeah.
2.5, 3.
Yeah.
Any Suffolk
Yeah.
County girls, or mostly Nassau for you, Dawn?
No, I think we have a pretty good mix of both right now. I think our freshman class is Nassau heavy, but our upperclassmen are Suffolk heavy.
It's interesting.
Suffolk kids are so tough.
They are.
Nassau
bit.
kids are too.
Yeah, you get the right ones, no
Depends.
doubt.
It depends.
Depends what town.
Depends what town.
It's true.
Montauk, you're
That's
good.
true.
You guys got to watch our show on parenting. You get some good laughs about that, especially our other guest. Let's bring Kim Williams into the picture.
Kim, what's up?
How are you doing?
Kim, last time we saw you, you were taking over Wesleyan, and now you're absolutely crushing it, and we're not surprised.
I can't believe I'm going into my 4th year. It's flying by, but I'm excited.
Good. We're very excited and happy for all your successes.
Yeah, just to tell you a little something that Dawn probably doesn't know about the Winkoffs. Every year we go on a road tour, and a few years ago, I guess it was the first year that Kim took over Wesleyan. We went and visited her and spent an hour or two with her and with herself, and then the boys' staff, Coach Reba. And I think, am I wrong? Did you have one win when you took over? When you took over that program, you had one win coming in, not your team, the team before. Kim, you there? Guys, I lost her.
I'm freezing a little bit here.
Oh, you froze?
We can hear you now.
The
Oh,
record of the team
back
before you
down.
took over, were they like 1-13 or something?
Yeah, well, the year before I got there, they won one NESCAC game. So,
One NESCAC game. I knew it was,
um,
yeah. And
but my first year, we actually only won two NESCAC games. So it was it wasn't an easy first year either.
yeah, when did you make the playoffs? Your second or third year?
My second year, we won seven NESCAC games. So we were able to make the playoffs and then get our first bid to the NCAA tournament in school history. So that was my second year was definitely a big year. It was a good turning point for the program.
That must have been at large, right? Because you didn't win the conference.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That year we got five NESCACs in the NCAA tournament, and we were the fourth at large team.
Wow.
So
I remember, did the two wins you had in your first year, were those later in the season, right?
yeah, we got Williams, which is always a big deal when you beat Williams at Wesleyan, right around the middle of the season, and then we won our last game against Conn. So we got five wins total that year, but it was definitely, I changed quite a bit when I got to West, so it took some time for us to put the pieces together.
And I heard a rumor that you're a preseason number 4 in the country. Is that true?
That was one of those U.S. lacrosse way early rankings this past summer. So I think that the U.S. lacrosse does new preseason rankings this week. So we'll see kind of where they see us. But at least at the end of the year last year, that's kind of where they put us. So
Cool.
No.
Are you almost ready to go live here, guys? Yep. Start the show. Okay, so before we give you our intro to Beyond the Game, which is our new live stream show. This is our first episode. We're calling it Girls Recruiting Hangout. We are really excited, and we want to kind of give you a breakdown of what the show is going to entail. We're going to talk about 5 main segments that talk about recruiting and helping anyone who has a girl who aspires to play lacrosse in college and might potentially be going through the recruiting process. So tonight we're going to be talking about finding the right fit and the importance of highlight video. We're going to be talking about exposure and events. We're going to be talking about communicating with college lacrosse coaches. We're going to be talking about visits and commitments, as well as scholarships. And we brought on 2 of, in our opinion, college's best lacrosse coaches to just share their stories and share their insight and their experience just to help educate you. And that's the biggest thing that they're going to be doing and helping us with. And I guess before we introduce them and talk a little bit more about them and ask our first question, let's maybe roll the intro to our brand new show, Beyond the Game. All right, welcome. We're officially getting rocking and rolling here. Let's first start by introducing our 2 guests. Dawn Sachs of Mercy. Please talk a little bit about your story and tell us how you're doing tonight.
Hey, how are you?
Doing good?
I don't know. I don't really have much of a story. I'm going into my 7th season at Mercy. I was a full-time teacher on Long Island for 7 years before I got into the college coaching scene. And yeah, it just kind of fell into my lap. And, we took our program from a middle-of-the-road, mediocre Division II team to one of the top teams in the country. It's been exciting. I've recruited a ton from Long Island, so I've got some really gritty players and, looking to bring in blue-collar kids to play, a pretty tough and aggressive type style and continue to move forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Dawn. And Kim, just a quick background on your road to becoming a college lacrosse coach and, get us going.
Can't hear Kim.
Kim said she's delaying and skipping. That's her internet.
She's not, she doesn't look like she's lagging on our end.
Hey, Kim, can you hear us?
Looks like Kim's frozen in space.
All right, it's all good. We're going to start here with our first segment. Let's roll Finding the Right Fit. So when we talk about finding the right fit, it's really important that girls lacrosse recruits evaluate the entire picture. And a lot goes into choosing the right school. A lot goes into choosing the lacrosse program you might eventually go play for. And I think the biggest thing that girls lacrosse recruits need to understand is, what are they getting into? How much lacrosse is being played once they get to the next level and go play in college? And it really matters what school you go to, matters what conference you play for, and especially what division you play for, whether it be 1, 2, or 3. So Dawn, we're going to start with you here, talking generally about Division II lacrosse. You can talk even more specifically if you want about your school and your conference. How much goes in to what your girls do throughout the year in being a lacrosse player for a Division II program?
Yeah, so I think it's different at every program within our division. You could have some people that are going to the max amount of hours, which is 15 in the fall, or you can have some programs that are, hitting the six-hour mark throughout the course of the week. In season, you've got some programs that go for the full 20, and some programs that go for, 12 to 14 hours. And that's very different throughout across the entire division. We have some schools within our conference that go the full. We have some that don't. So you really have to do, a good job investigating kind of where you see yourself and what you're doing. You've got lifts, and you've got team workouts, and you've got conditioning, and you've got game tape and film and things like that. So, you got to, when looking at a school, figure out, how much time you would like to invest. I think the biggest part for us, where I sit, is the amount of time the kids are putting in the off season, when they're home for winter break, which they currently are right now, and what they're doing over the summer. And, are they the type that's going to continue to push themselves and continue to train like they were training when they were here, or are they going to kind of sit around and wait for us to kind of get after them? You need kids that are going to be willing to kind of go that extra mile and really get themselves in tip-top shape in order to be the best in the country.
Now, same for you, Kim, like Division III, how does it differ in your conference specifically? What is the level of commitment throughout the year for an athlete who plays in your division?
Yeah, I think that there's generally a misconception sometimes that Division III is a really low commitment. We still have quite a strong commitment, but there's definitely going to be a stronger balance in a lot of ways. We don't in the NESCAC, we don't have an off season with coaches, so the entire fall, our girls, everything is run by our seniors and by our captain. So, the teams are typically still playing a few times a week. They are lifting, they're conditioning, they're doing things that many other teams are doing. But the biggest difference compared to Division I and II is that coaches can't be there. And so it really needs to come from the players. And as much as I would love to be there, and I wish we had more time with them in the off season, we love the fact that they have to be so internally motivated, and it develops our leaders in a lot of amazing ways because they have to step up and they have to be so passionate about what they're doing. So, at the NECAC level, coaches are really looking for self-motivated players that can push themselves when no one's watching, players that, want to be a part of something where they have this strong role. We don't have any limit orders at our level, but we have really strong academic commitments. So we're limited in that sense. Whereas, our kids are, we have to take on a pre-med track. We have players that are taking really strong academic commitments and demands. So we have to be really cognizant over that. The other thing you'll find at the D3 level is I have 7 two-sport athlete team. We had 7 girls that went abroad this fall. So they have opportunities to pursue other things in the off season if that's what they're looking for. Something like going abroad, which they only do one semester of their junior year, or something like playing another sport because, and it takes a really strong, committed player to do 2 sports, but it's something that's very doable at our level if it's something you want to take advantage of.
Okay, great. And I think, what's interesting that some people don't think about is when girls go through the recruiting process, that themselves and their families are seeking a school. But on the flip side, they also need to think about coaches are seeking quality lacrosse recruits that fit their programs. And lacrosse programs are brands, and these universities and schools are companies, and they need to market themselves in the right way, and they need to find ways to make their schools attractive to prospective athletes. So a question for you, Dawn. how do colleges, in your experience, or your school in particular, make your school attractive to a student athlete so that they might want to potentially go there or come see the campus and just learn more?
Yeah, so I mentioned that we do a lot of recruiting from the island, and I think that that's really important because we can sell the fact that we're far enough away from home so that they feel like they're on their own, but we're close enough in case they ever want to go home for like a home cooked meal or something. And I think it's important for our student athletes to have parent involvement and parent participation coming to a lot of our games. So I think, those are kind of key things that we kind of hone in on. You mentioned a little bit about, selling your program. Academics for me are huge. Like I mentioned before, I was a teacher for 7 years before I got into the college coaching scene. So we're really on top of our student athletes to make sure that they're balancing academics with athletics. So we have small class sizes, very hands-on. Our student athletes are, we praise the high GPAs and really focus on things like that. So, there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of sell your program, and everyone tries to find their own niche. And, for me, I'm also an assistant athletic director, the senior women's administrator, head of academics on campus for student athletes. So I have a really hands-on approach. So I think, the kids that we get, them and their parents seem to enjoy that. But other schools are different, and they might have their own niche and different, views and things like that. And, people often ask me, why do I just recruit from Long Island? Well, it just seems to happen that way. I have a lot of connections down there. But there's good talent everywhere. Kim mentioned she's in Florida right now. Pulling from other places is great opportunities for other people. It just doesn't seem to fit our niche. But, there's a school and an opportunity for everyone. And I always say it's not a 4-year commitment choosing a school. It's a lifetime commitment. We were talking a little bit about that earlier. And I think that that's something that's really important for them to understand and try and figure out.
Yeah, I want to talk on how the scope of where players are coming from and where players are going is kind of getting more and more spread out. Kim's down in Florida right now, right? There's events all over the place. Kim, I want you to touch on real quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'm noticing more and more in the girls' game, they're utilizing highlight videos. Basically, players are accumulating their best plays, putting it into a video, and sending it out to coaches as kind of like a trailer, as a preview as to the type of player they are. How important is highlight video as you approach the recruiting process, and are you starting to see a trend as well where more girls are starting to use it to their advantage to seek schools and hopefully find the right fit?
Yeah, I think highlight videos can be super helpful because it just allows us to, we're trying to think about a player, we're trying to, I'm talking about a player with my assistants, and it's something quick that we can click on and look at and just get a general basis for how that player is athletically and kind of how they can perform on the field. It's definitely not the only way we do recruiting. We need to see a lot of other things, but it's just a nice way, like you said, to get a preview of the player, to get a first glance, or when we're looking back and trying to, we see a lot of different players throughout the year. And sometimes players can look alike in certain ways. And so we want to look back at a player and say, oh, this is the one that we were thinking about. This is what she does. And, it just needs to be a few minutes. It doesn't need to be something super long. Coaches, we're going to go, we want to see game film. We want to see full, showcase film. We want to see longer films. Or obviously seeing you play live, working together at our clinics. But the highlight film just allows us to kind of take another glance or have another, remembering you in another way, which is helpful.
Perfect. And
Corey.
yes.
Where's Dawn? Where's Dawn from? What school is she from?
Mercy
Mercy.
College,
And Kim?
Wesleyan.
Thank you.
You got it. And Frank, if you don't mind, I just want to roll the next segment, which is going to be our exposure and events. And there are a lot of them out there. There's a lot more events each and every year. There's some good ones, there's some bad ones. And I think it's important for parents and girls to understand that so they don't waste time and money going to somewhere that doesn't make any sense for them and where they're not going to get any exposure. I have another question for Kim as it relates to exposure and events. First off, let's start off talking about what age group you recruit most, Kim, or at least if you notice in your conference or in Division III level, where are coaches targeting players, and at what point in their recruiting process are they starting to connect with them?
Yeah, so another big misconception is the Division One and Two recruiting rules that recently passed with communication. We don't have that at the D3 level, so we can communicate with players. We can communicate with 2021s, 2022s, but with where we are focused in our recruiting cycles is we're focused on 2020s, which are the juniors, because at the NESCAC level, we can't move forward with recruits until after their junior year. We have what's called a pre-read process where we send their information over to admissions, and that can't happen until July 1st after their junior year. So, for us, we're primarily focused on 2020s and 2021s, starting to look at those through showcases, but that's kind of where our focus lies. And then we recruit nationally. So we are attending, I'm all over the place at different events. And like you said, there are so many different events. So it's figuring out, based on your list, where should I be? Where are the coaches that I'm looking for? Which schools are in my top group that I want to get on campus? When we have recruits come to our clinics on campus, that's super helpful because it allows us to work with them on campus, allows them to visit campus, allows them to, meet with our student athletes and campus. But because there's so many events, it's just so important to do your research and make sure that you're going to the right events that have the school that you're looking for.
That's
the
perfect.
coaches
And I
represented
think
there, and that you're not feeling like you have to be at everything.
Sure. And as it relates to doing your homework and doing your research, for you, Dawn, how many times do you see a potential recruit before you say, hey, I want to offer you a spot and I want you to come to my school? And also, what type of events do you like to see them at, with their high school team, with their club team at a showcase, or these individual events that are out there where you have a bunch of really good players from all over the country and they go to one spot and perform in front of coaches?
Yeah, so I think a good mixture of all of that combined is really helpful for me. Obviously watching them play with their summer teams is beneficial. They've been playing with them for a while, so they get used to playing with each other, and you can see some of their strengths come out with the people that they know. But I think going to a couple of the showcases, and I'm not going to boast, but the FLG showcase that you guys run every year, I think is really super important. They're playing with people that they don't know. And you really get to see the quality of leader that's going to arise there, and someone that's going to step up and take leadership, who's going to start talking and directing. I think that's something that's really important. So, I like to see a little bit of both. I'm very lucky. I live on the island, so I get to come down and I watch high school games all the time. I don't know if a lot of other coaches have that same ability to do that, but I found some diamond in the roughs who didn't actually, play, club ball, and they wound up being first team all conference players and all Americans for me thus far. So, just getting out there and getting your program's name out there, I think is important. And, obviously the more successful you are, the more people are going to be interested in what you're doing and wanting to become a part of that program. But, it's a money game, and it's difficult, to kind of fund, everything that's out there. So as Kim said, you really got to pick and choose and kind of, do your due diligence and make sure that, what you're investing in is what's going to be the ultimate price you pay, just because I think it's important that you're not just randomly going to just everything and not having any direction. You really have to kind of pinpoint what you're looking for.
We talk about all the time intangibles, finding that dime in the rough, someone who is just grittier, harder working, the things that you can't really measure. And a question for you, Kim, how do you try to measure those things in a potential recruit, and what do you look for and how do you look for these things that are hard to be measured? And you can measure how fast someone shoots or how fast they run or how quick they are, but how hard they work and how gritty they are, those things you can't measure. So what do you look for, Kim, when you're trying to find those things in specific players you recruit?
Yeah, we play a really scrappy style of play and a very, just gritty, high energy team. We talk a lot, we might not be the prettiest lacrosse. We want it to be, we just want to get it done. And that's what we look for when we're going through the recruiting process is who's diving to save the balls, who's running when the ball is not in their stick and working hard. And, we're looking at people when they don't have the ball. Like, how are they interacting with their teammates? How hard are they working off ball? How hard are they sliding when, their teammate needs a slide? And those are opportunities for us to see the full player. And, and coming on campus is so important for us too, because we have to get to know the personality and make sure that you're the right fit on and off the field. Because for us, it's not just a lacrosse. It's a family. It's a full lifetime commitment when you're a part of our program. And so, we try to look at as much as we can. We're not just going to call your club coach. We want to call your high school coach too. We want to speak to people that work with you and that are going to talk about personality as well, because we're definitely going to push you, and we want to make sure that you're that right fit within our program. And we sometimes even try to see how they're interacting with their parents on the sideline during tournaments. We look at all of those things and make sure that it's the right fit for us overall.
Cool.
A quick question for you, Kim. Have you ever been in an experience in the past where you're at an event recruiting student athletes, and you might have really liked the level of play of one of the girls, and then noticed something negative about maybe something they did or their parent did that turned you off, and you decided not to recruit that athlete?
Yeah, actually, we were just having a conversation about this past weekend with a few other coaches. We were at a camp a few years ago, and there was a parent that was complaining over the position their daughter was playing, and was counting playing time. And this was during like a camp. And she ended up pulling her daughter out of camp and was just unhappy with, she was a midi playing a little bit of defense because there was 6 middies on the team, something simple like that. And it wasn't the best representation, and it was really unfortunate for the player. But as coaches, we look at those interactions, because that's something so simple as a camp. And for when that parent got so involved in that situation, it's for us is like, is this something that we want to have be a part of our program? And I think that it's important for parents to know that coaches, we're friendly, we talk, so we have these conversations together. And that's not to say people can't make mistakes, because that can happen. And sometimes, there's heat of the moment situations, but really thinking through your actions before they happen, and just making sure that your actions don't, hurt your daughter in the process, because that's the most important thing.
Sure. And I think it's great that we're starting to talk about the communication piece with college coaches. And Frank, if you don't mind just kind of rolling, because that is our next segment. I want to elaborate off of Coach Wink's question, which I think is an important one. And for you, Dawn, I'm just curious, what do you think the role of a parent should be in their daughter's recruiting process?
So I definitely think that they should play a role, but I think it needs to be a little bit less of a role, and really let their daughter kind of take over the lead of the recruitment. I'm like a big make your own email address kind of person. Like, you don't need to use mom or dad's email address. You're old enough to make those correspondence yourself. I think on the visit, I like a lot of dialogue. I like to talk. I could sit there and talk to people for 6 hours if they let me. But I think when a parent starts to take over and asks all the questions, it kind of leaves a little bit of a taste in my mouth. Like, I'm not sure if that student athlete is as invested as their parent is. And I need someone that's going to be all in. So for me, I think the student athlete being able to hold a conversation. I mean, I'm going to be with this student athlete for the next 4 years. We recruit them in their junior year. So that's 6 full years. They've got to be able to hold a conversation with me. I'm a pretty dominating type personality. So, a little back and forth is going to be really helpful for us. But I think, the parent wants to make sure that they're in the hands of the right person. And, we talk about, are we the right fit for that individual athlete? I think I always tell our kids, make sure you come and watch one of our games. Make sure you see my style of coaching, you see our style of play. Is that something that, you can handle? and see that, our parents play a role, and that role is to be, very supportive from the sidelines. Whether it's a big win and they're there, celebrating with us, or it's a big loss and they're the first ones to hug us. They play a role throughout the course of the 4 years while they're with us as well. But, it needs to be a little bit more of a relaxed role. Whereas if they're used to a little bit more hands-on, that's not really my style. But, I think that, letting their student athlete, daughter take over, because it's going to be their life, and it's going to be, the next 4 years of what they're doing. It's got to be on them.
All right, great. Let's talk a little bit about visits and commitments, because that's kind of like the next phase of this year. And the communication piece, we can probably talk all night about that. And that is important. But a lot of parents, I think, want to know what that next step is. And if you don't mind, just kind of introduce the next segment. Already Frank's 5 steps ahead of me, as always. I appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about a question for Kim. At what point do you say, hey, I want to get this particular student athlete onto my campus? I've seen them play. I've had some correspondence. I've communicated with them. Now it's time to get them on campus. Just take us through a little bit of a timeline, how that works, and what that process is like.
Yeah, again, that goes back to definitely junior year, and during the academic year for us, which is really important, because we want you to be able to. We can do unofficial visits where you can go to class with a player, you can go to lunch with players, and then we can tour your own campus. You can meet with our staff, so it gives you an opportunity to see what a day in the life of a student athlete is like, which is so important for us. And we don't want to do it too early, where by the time you're end of your junior year, you almost forget what your visit is like. And we can't, it's tough to do it your senior year because it's a little late in the process. So junior fall is a great time of year, because a lot of times, even if you're a 2-sport athlete, we can have you get there in the morning, get you out to still make your afternoon practice, and have that not be affected. And then, and once we're in season, especially because in the NESCAC, since we don't have an off season, when we start our season, we're so focused on being in season, and we try not to have as many visits during that time of year. So, your senior year, we can do what's called the official visit, which is the overnight visit. But at that point in time, we typically have our early decision 1 commitments. So those typically end up falling to our players that are already committed to applying early decision. So being able to get there your junior year, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take visits before then. Like you're going, up to Massachusetts for a tournament, definitely come stop at Wesleyan on the way and look around. And, if we're there, we'd love to meet with you. But in terms of setting up an actual visit with players, we really focus on doing that your junior year.
Okay, great. And for you, Dawn, just kind of flipping gears and talking about maybe in your experience some stories or experiences you've seen of girls who have maybe come on an official or unofficial, and maybe have done something that has put them in a disadvantage, in a bad position. Have you seen something like that? And are there certain things that you should steer away from when you're on those visits? Like what do you kind of look for, and what do your players look for when players come on campus?
Yeah, I think it's really important for them to be able to have a dialogue back and forth. When they come for their visits, I don't want it to be me lecturing them for 3 straight hours about what we are, what we stand for, what our school is like, what our academics are like. I like to have a conversation about what they're looking for, and does what we have fit what their expectations are. I think for us, for official visits, that comes a little bit later. So we've really narrowed it down and kind of kept hold of the players that, we've really wanted. So I haven't really had any, bad experiences with the official visits. But, we want to do our due diligence and get them on campus as much as we possibly can to make sure that it is the right fit for them. Sometimes you get kids that are like, oh, this is great, first visit, and this is where I want to go, and I'm ready to commit. And, I don't really accept those. I'm like, all right, let's make sure you do an overnight. Let's meet the team. Let's go for a class. Let's watch a game, come check us out at a tournament in the fall, or, different things like that. And I think that that's really important, and them getting to know who our kids are, what we stand for, how we play, what's important to us. And, Are they going to be the right fit academically, socially, athletically? All those things are going to have to fit. So, I think that the visits are really important. And the more you take, the more you'll understand what you really, really want. And I think that that's really important.
Hey girls, it's Lori. The Facebook fans want to know, where did you guys play in high school and in college?
I'll go first. So I was born in Long Island, but I moved to New Jersey. So I played high school lacrosse in Jersey, Westmore Central in Morris County, and then I couldn't stay away from the island, so I went back there for college and when I played what was CW Post, which is now LIU Post, but is also changing. So.
And I grew up on the island as well. I played in Lynbrook, which I started their program out there. It wasn't a big thing in the area when I started, and then subsequently I played at Adelphi.
That's cool.
Cool, thank you.
Love it. Long Island roots for both. All right. Let's move into scholarships and commitments. You okay with that? Anything else you want to touch on as it relates to some of the visits?
Well, I think it's important, and I think our coaches have done a great job explaining to the parents and student athletes about the due diligence portion of the recruiting. And I think one of the things that I get every time is, you have to put in the effort, and the effort sometimes is visiting a lot of schools and communicating with a lot of schools and evaluating what works best for your child or you as the student athlete. But I think the most important thing is the parents need to realize if their child wants to play and commit to playing collegiately at a varsity level, they have to do the work. Because I know these two young ladies who have built great programs, they know that the kid who walks in there and the parents doing all the talking, that's not the kid they want. I mean, they're not going to come out and just say it, but that's the reality.
Sure.
They want the kid that's the go-getter. I mean, you talk about Kim's program where in the fall, those kids, we call them now athletes. It's funny, when you were talking, Kim, we have this thing called now, and it's no one's watching. I mean, I want kids that are working hard on their own, and we're talking, obviously, we're involved in clubs, so, you got fourth graders. You could tell the kids that are playing on their own because they're getting better. And you could do the same thing being the head coach at Wesleyan, the girls that are working and hard in the fall. So I think that the parents and the kids that are listening to this better realize that if you're a now athlete, okay, you could be a collegiate lacrosse player. If you're not, maybe you should think of another route.
Mm-hmm. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of times parents, they have their kids playing sports because they want that scholarship. And I think we're going to talk about it in a second because I think it is important. But if that's why you're playing and that's why you have your daughter invested so much in lacrosse, that's definitely not the best reason to be involved. And Kim, I just want you to touch on this real quick. Talk about scholarships and how those work at your school.
I have another question for you.
Yep.
From Stephen Fava. Do the coaches recruit more at high school team or club team?
You want to give that to Kim?
I think it varies. Yeah, it varies at every school. In particular, where we are in the NESCAC, we definitely focus more on the club scene. If we can get to some high school games, that's great. But because we recruit nationally, it's just a different recruiting profile that we're looking at. So, we are definitely, focused on recruiting anyone that's ready. But, before I came to West, I was at a state school in New Jersey, and we definitely focused a lot more on high school players that maybe necessarily couldn't even play club for different reasons. At Wesleyan, all of our players do play club lacrosse too.
So I have another question for you. Either one of you ladies want to answer it, it's fine. It's from Rachel Livingston. She wants to know, where should the child begin their process? Some just don't know where to start, and neither does the parent.
Yeah, so I think that you need to kind of figure out, do you want a big school, a small school? What kind of academics are you looking for? And, I coach within a club as well, and the first thing we always tell them is that the last part of your recruiting process should come with lacrosse. Every other piece needs to come first as far as that's concerned before you put the lacrosse piece in. And then the lacrosse piece will eventually find its way. So if you're looking for a little bit of a bigger school, you need to make sure that academically it's going to fit, socially it's going to fit, all those types of pieces first, and then you can kind of narrow down your visits. But, going back to the communication, I think it's really important for these student athletes to really stay on top of that. And, I'm a staff of me and my assistant coach, and I'm so grateful to have him, because before him, it was literally just me and a rotating door of a grad assistant. So, it's hard for us to be able to, get in everyone that we want to get in. Whereas some programs might have, 5 assistants and their main role is just recruiting, and they're constantly communicating with them. So every program has to run differently. But it's really up to that individual to kind of stay in touch and stay on top of, what's being asked. And if a coach is asking for transcripts and they're just kind of dragging their feet on that, that doesn't put a good taste in a coach's mouth either. So, trying to get as much information out of each student athlete is going to be the most imperative to make sure that it's going to be the right fit.
Hey, Dawn, how do you decide if someone's labeled a scholarship player in your recruiting class or not?
Okay, so I saw this question on the sheet, and I was unsure of really how to answer it, because I think I'm like a terrible business person. I'm just gonna be flat out honest. Like, I meet these kids and I meet their families, and I love them, and I want them to be a part of what we're doing and what we're growing, and hopefully, moving towards, something bigger than all of us. And when that happens, I'm like, but I just want to give them whatever I can. And our scholarship structure obviously, doesn't allow that. But for me as a coach, I think it's really important to reward every one of our student athletes with some sort of an athletic scholarship. So I have 27 players who all get something. I know that there's another misconception where people are getting full rides. Like, I have coached some of the top players in Long Island in club ball, and I can tell you and reassure you 1,000 times over that is not happening. Athletic scholarships, especially where I am, is just a small piece. And most schools are able to stack that with the academic. So you're looking for an overall package, but it's not going to pay your way. And it's really got to be something that, obviously financially works for you and your family. But, and not every school is like that. There are other schools, within the division that are having walk-ons and non-scholarship athletes. I will tell you that I was a non-scholarship walk-on recruit at Adelphi way back in the day, and I refused to let anyone play over me, and wound up, gaining the starting spot and having much success with that and gaining a scholarship in that process. So just because you go somewhere and you don't get a scholarship to start doesn't mean that it's always going to stay like that. But, for me, like I said, I'm a little bit different, and I try and reward all of our student athletes with something, and I try and have them treat it as a job. You're being paid for the job that you're supposed to be doing on the field. And if you're not going to do your job, then you're not going to be paid and you're going to be fired.
I think, we talk about all the time too, challenges in the recruiting process. Now for you, Kim, you don't offer scholarships. So some might consider that a challenge, some might not. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe some other challenges that you discover going through the recruiting process?
Yeah, I think, for us, it's not a challenge, because it's finding the right student athletes that fit what we're looking for and can handle what we call at Wesleyan, it's an investment, looking at a place like Wesleyan in the NESCAC, where none of the NESCAC schools offer athletic scholarship or academic scholarship. So, you really need to look at our financial aid calculator and see if you're a family that is going to need aid, how your aid looks through the financial aid calculator, and whether it's something that, you want to take on as a family, whether it's through loans or, different outside scholarships you can look for. But for us, we're one of the top academic institutions in the country across, and that's what the other NESCACs are. And so, we're able to, I've never had a player graduate without a job already lined up. And so although it's a big investment, for us, we really focus on the fact that it's worth the investment. And, our student athletes are getting really high academic institution experiences, and but that's what's right for them. We don't sugarcoat the process. We're not going to say maybe you can qualify, you either do or you don't, and you have to be really due diligent in the process to make sure that you're ready for, again, the investment if you need to qualify for aid, and that your family can handle that, because for us that is definitely a family decision, and that's something we obviously really involve the parents in, and make sure that they're up for the cost of a place like Wesleyan.
Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I always talk to parents about you need to evaluate, and the kids need to evaluate your return on your investment. So, there are schools that you pay full freight. I use the term full freight, where you're paying $60,000, $70,000 a year and taking student loans out. But what kind of job are you getting when you get out of that school off your hard work? There's schools, I mean, if you get a great job, and obviously the return on investment might be better than if you went to a school that was a little bit cheaper. Or there are schools that are a little bit cheaper that you're getting, obviously, a great return on your investment. So you got to evaluate. I always say you got to look at the whole picture. We talk about the right fit, you got to look at the whole picture. When we talk to a student athlete, we talk about the economic component, along with the academic component, the social component, and then you get into the other things, the distance from home, the size of the school, what do you want to study? Obviously, you're not going to a school, if you want to be an engineer, it doesn't have engineering. So I think we're getting some good insight from Kim and Dawn. It's been really, really helpful.
Yeah, we appreciate everything, and maybe just one takeaway point from each of you. Through all your experience, recruiting players and even going through the recruiting process yourselves, what might be one thing that you hope, the people that are watching this, not just right now, but, once we post a little bit later, take away from you guys?
I think that, we talked a lot about fit, and I just want to reiterate fit, because, being a college athlete is one of the greatest experiences you'll ever have. And when you talked about the work ethic, it's going to be one of the hardest experiences you'll have too. The recruiting process is just a very small part of that experience, but it's so worthwhile in the end. But you need to make sure that it's the right fit overall, and school, student body, majors, distance, all those things that you talked about. Coaches can change, and that's something you always have to consider through the process. But we spend quite a bit of time together. I have an open door policy. My players are always in my office. And so I need to make sure that the players that we're looking at buy into our philosophy, and it's the right fit with us too, as coaches. So just really look at that whole thing. And I mean, I played Division II, and I loved my experience, and I don't regret any part of my recruiting process and being at Post, because it made me who I am today. And but at the same time, I also love the Division III model and where I am. And so it's figuring out what's the right fit for you. And that was the right fit for me as an athlete, but this is the right fit for my players and where they are and the experiences that they get to have. So just be really open and really, don't allow outside pressures and people committing and all of those things that don't really matter to you in your process. It's your experience, it's your process, and you need to be the one driving the car through that process.
How about you, Dawn?
Yeah, I think for me, I work with career services a lot for our student athletes, and what I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand all the time is that a lot of companies really want to hire student athletes because they have that certain know how to win, know how to overcome defeat, know how to work hard, know how to manage their time, know how to budget their money, know how to work with no sleep. They've got the intangibles that, a regular student attending a school might not have. And so I think using that to their advantage is super, super, super important. And really kind of building your career off of being a student athlete. And I don't think I see that enough. And that's something that's really important that we stress where we are, because those intangibles are things that, that just come with the everyday essence of being a student athlete. And I think that that's really important.
Great, thank you, Dawn and Kim. Your advice it's great. I mean, it's something that I think should resonate with anyone that could potentially want to play lacrosse in college. And I appreciate you guys answering the questions and taking time out of your night to share some of your stories and your experiences with us.
Yeah, it's priceless hearing it from two women that are leading, other women and doing great jobs at the collegiate level, but obviously young mentors that not too long ago were in the shoes of these student athletes. So, I mean, I certainly appreciate your time, and we'll be rooting for you this year. Where you got two Winkoffs that'll be fans of the Mercy and Wesleyan squads.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks for jumping on, guys. We really appreciate it.
So next week we have our second episode of our official Beyond the Game. What are we calling it again? We were talking about in the office.
Oh, it's funny. We were talking about it's recruiting from a parent's perspective. It's going to be an insight to a parent's experience of going through the recruiting process, and I'll speak at length about when I went through it with the young man to my left, Corey, and it's kind of morphed into our jobs, and it also morphed into something that we do every February. And I met the wonderful, and you met the wonderful. Well, you knew Kim Williams, but
Yes.
I didn't know Kim
When
Williams.
Kim was crushing it up at Colby.
Yeah,
That's
she was
right.
an assistant before she headed to. Don't tell me, Kim. I'll come up with it. It was in New Jersey. Oh God. I know the name of the school. It's in my head. Do you remember the school? She started the program there. Hit me with it, Kim. Stockton.
Stockton, yes.
Stockton. I didn't want to give it away, but
Oh yeah, Johnny Stockton. Wow. So next week we'll see everybody at 7:30 on Tuesday night, January 15th.
yes, and you can watch this episode on our brand new website, byglacrosse.com. That'll be up there tomorrow. And thank you again to our coaches. Awesome job, and you crushed it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you
All right,
for having
guys.
us.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Good evening.
Bye.